Have you ever found yourself at a roadblock with Dungeons and Dragons? Maybe you've thought about becoming a dungeon master or a game master, and you're not really sure what that entails. Or maybe even you've thought about what class may be the strongest and why they are the strongest.
And maybe you've played every class of Dungeons and Dragons, but you haven't played every subclass and you've overlooked some. Or maybe that new interesting character that you've daydreamed about for weeks isn't as fun to play in game. Here at Theoretical Insights of D&D, me and Rob are going to be discussing some insights and theories of Dungeons and Dragons. So let's get ready
And roll for insight.
Theory, I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Rob.
And today, returning with us, we have Eric. Say hello, Eric.
Howdy.
Now, we're covering the last subclasses of the fighter today.
Mainly the last three they are the newest to come out.
We got two from Tasha's, and Purple Dragon Knight's not one of the newest to come out. It's been out for a while.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's been out for a lot amount of time than the champion, obviously.
That's true. What book did the Purple Dragon Knight come from again, Eric?
Sword Coast, I think.
Yeah, Sword Coast Adventure.
Yeah.
Good book. It's a good read. So, let's dive into it. Let's look at that Rune Knight real quick.
Now, the Rune Knight in and of itself is possibly, out of these three, the most offensive heavy.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you.
And it's got some control, and as we go through, you'll get the idea that it's almost similar to the Battle Master and the Arcane Archer in the ability to control battle, but not so much the flow. More so along the lines of controlling the enemy, taking their movement away, charming them, stuff like that.
Yeah.
There looks to be like a lot of buffs and debuffs in here, along with, the added damage of giants' power.
Yeah. And really, when you get into a game and you have the ability to get larger, that's barely ever a bad thing.
Size difference can play a role. It affects grappling. It also affects movement a little bit. I believe it can also give cover, or half cover, or 3/4 cover, depending on
As far as I know, according to the standard rules, I believe a small creature can take cover behind a medium creature and become half covered, and I do believe that a medium creature can do that behind a large.
Okay.
I may be wrong, and it may only be small behind large, but we can look into that at a later date.
Let's look at its third level abilities. You get some bonus proficiencies. You gain proficiency with Smith's tools, and you learn to speak, read, and write Giant, which is a pretty impressive combination. I always like adding more languages to my character. One, because I'm not bilingual. I don't speak two languages, unless you count sarcasm as one.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I just like to play a character who just speaks all these languages, and I feel better about myself.
Well, anytime that you can gain a language for free in Dungeons and Dragons without having to take that language and fill up that slot that you get from your race is highly beneficial.
That is true. Again, it also kind of depends on the game you're running. If your DM is running a game where pretty much everyone speaks common, the languages are not as impressive as if you were running a very different culture type of game,
Yeah.
But Smith's tools, that opens up a whole nother possibility for downtime activities, role play, traveling.
The ability to create your own weaponry as long as you have the resources to do so. That way you could save a little bit of money in the long run.
Resources and time. Smith's tools, they allow you to do a whole lot of things, and
Maybe even upgrade your armor.
yeah, which is, it's always nice. So the bonus efficiencies are not the strongest thing of the class, but they're definitely nothing to dismiss right away.
Yeah, they're some of the most useful. And I think that's oftentimes what happens when people are going into a subclass, which usually happens at third level. is they look at what they get at third level and it's like, well, that's not going to be extremely useful until they actually start getting to the point to where they can use those abilities and those new class features. And like, wow, I didn't realize that it was actually going to be this useful.
Yeah. It always seems like the smaller things in Dungeons and Dragons can really go a long way.
Yeah, that is very true.
I mean, just look at halflings.
Halflings and gnomes.
Halflings, gnomes, and dwarfs. Also at third level, you get probably like the main feature of the subclass, which is the Rune Carver. You can use magic runes to enhance your gear. You learn 2 runes of your choice from among the runes described below, and each time you gain a level in this class, you can replace one rune you know with a different one from this feature. When you reach certain levels in this class, you'll learn additional runes.
And it's got a table to where you have a maximum number of runes that you can have learned. Third level, you'll have 2, and then it's going to go on the regular level up basis as most subclasses. So 7th, you'll gain another, and you'll gain another at 10th, and you'll max out at 5 at 15th level.
And there's 6 different runes to choose from, and I'm a little disappointed that you can't learn all of them. But,
Yeah.
it makes sense. You
But-
gotta limit somehow.
The most important thing to notice is that for the first time, it is a save that doesn't have to do with a strength modifier or a dex modifier for the fighter. This save for the runes is based off of the constitution modifier.
Which is, honestly, a fresh new taste.
Yeah, and it opens up a whole new realm of possibilities because you could build your character to be the meat shield for the party and you're still good.
Yeah, it really changes the dynamic of the fighter. If you're going based off to, in a way, kind of power gaming a little bit, you are changing like the normal kind of archetypical fighter where they have a higher strength score or a dex score than con score, and you're essentially kind of in a weird way making it more barbarian-like.
Yeah.
Let's look at the runes. Eric, what's your thoughts on the Cloud Rune? Which is, while you are wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune, you have advantage on dexterity, sleight of hand checks, and charisma deception checks. And that's just while you're wearing the rune. You haven't even activated it yet.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like these runes because they give you that passive ability, and they also can give you ability you activate.
Yeah, with these passive advantages on these checks, it could make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's something you don't have to worry about. It just happens.
Yeah.
But when you activate the Cloud Rune, when you or a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to invoke the rune and choose a different creature within 30 foot of you, other than the attacker. The chosen creature becomes the target of the attack using the same roll. This magic can transfer the attack's effects regardless of the attack's range. Once you invoke this rune, you can't do it until you finish a short or long rest. And that is powerful right there. Yeah, short or long rest.
Yeah.
Also, just imagine the sight of, you got a buddy that's like 15 feet away from you. He gets hit by a dagger. He's like a wizard, so he's only got a little bit of health left in this huge fight. And you're just like, nah, that's attacking my barbarian over there.
Yeah. It's similar to that seeking arrow we talked about last
It is. I just like the thought of this dagger, like, missing the wizard that's right next to it, and somehow the barbarian takes damage.
Yeah. No, you ain't taking damage. He is.
Which is crazy.
It gets more interesting when you go into the fire room, where while you're wearing, or this is the passive, the active is really interesting and plays into that control and the flow of battles, like a lot of the subclasses for the fighter does. But while wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune, your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check that you use with a tool that you're proficient with.
Which is ridiculous.
So what is the usual modifier or the stat to use a smithing tool?
It depends on the scenario.
Yeah, because sometimes I've seen them based on strength, sometimes intelligence, sometimes wisdom.
It really just depends, but
being able to double that proficiency bonus, even if it's only at +3 because you're at say 6th or 7th level, you're getting a +6 to whatever you roll automatically.
not only that, but this also stacks with expertise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because expertise, as written, it says your proficiency bonus is doubled, and this doubles it again. So now, of course, expertise you're not going to get at 3rd level, but you can get it maybe like 6th, 7th, maybe somewhere in the 10th level, somewhere around that range.
So you could be rolling like a +12.
Yeah,
Jesus.
which is crazy. You play an artificer.
Yeah.
What's your smithing tool's usual plus modifier to it?
Strength is a +3, so +5, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you think it is not uncommon to see a 5th or 6th level rogue with a +11 to their stealth.
Oh, that is true.
That is true.
But the active feature of this rune is where it gets really interesting.
This is something that I would never expect a fighter to do.
No, especially with the way that it is described.
Yeah.
To where you can invoke this rune whenever you use an attack, as long as it is socketed into that weapon. The target will take an extra 2d6 fire damage, and extra damage is always a good thing. But it must succeed on a strength saving throw, which is your 8 plus proficiency plus your con modifier, or it will be restrained for 1 minute. Now, of course, it can make the save again at the end of each of its turns, just like most of the restraining features of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
Pretty much any condition giving effect, you can remake the save.
But if he fails the first save, you are guaranteed to get 4d6 fire damage, because at the start of every turn, while they're restrained, at the start of each of their turns, they take 2d6 more fire damage.
Which is crazy.
A minimum of 2 and a max of 12. That's just, it's hard to beat.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going against somebody with a really low strength modifier.
Yeah. That's something I'd never picture the fighter being able to do. It's crazy. Like, I've always pictured the fighter like just to keep on attacking and attacking. This
is one where you could hit and walk away.
It's crazy.
To focus on something
3rd
else.
level too.
Yes.
Then you go into the Frost Rune, which is pretty cool. The passive is you have advantage on Wisdom animal handling checks and Charisma intimidation checks. Which, can be useful. But intimidation you probably use more than animal handling. Again, it depends on the but the fighter you're going to play.
Yeah.
When you activate it, though, for 10 minutes, you gain +2 to all ability checks and saving throws that use strength or constitution.
Pretty much any major large creature that's going to be attacking you. Now, granted that any kind of fire damage is usually based off dexterity. But if it's anything like a black dragon or a white dragon using acid or poison or cold damage, that's where, or anything that has any displacement abilities in their attacks, the ones that push you back 10 foot or knock you prone or anything like that, you have advantage, or not advantage, a +2 to those 2 saves specifically.
Yeah.
Pacifically or Atlantically?
Atlantically, actually.
Atlantically. It's crazy, too, because
it's all a technicality.
It's a +2 bonus to all ability checks and then strength and constitution saving throws. Which is crazy because this is, this affects charisma checks, intelligence checks, wisdom checks, and dex checks, which covers the whole smorgasbord besides saving throws. Now, granted, you'll roll skill checks or saving throws usually more than ability checks, but
yeah,
This is. I could definitely see because you get these runes back at a short rest. I could see this being a very I'm just going to use it for this one ability check after you. Maybe.
This gives the opportunity for the frontline guy to try to be interesting and have fun during the fight, because you don't really see any of the big tanky frontline guys being like, you know what, I'm going to run, I'm going to jump and do a front flip in the air, land on my knees, and bring my axe down into the guy's head while he's prone on the ground. Now, the DM can rule that you can just straight up do that, or he can say, okay, well, make me an athletics check to be able to pull the flip off.
Well, an athletics check is not an ability check.
It's
a skill check.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Let's hope you roll good.
Yeah, if you want to do that, roll good. Motto of my life right there.
Roll good.
So again, you're not going to roll ability checks as much as all the other types of checks. But it's still, the spur of the moment where you have to and you got a use of this, you can get it back in a short rest. Go ahead and use it.
Yep.
Stone Rune, which is the next one. The passive is honestly pretty powerful.
Yeah.
You have advantage on insight checks, and you have dark vision out to a range of 120 feet. So if you're playing a human fighter, and you got the Stone Rune, you don't have to worry about not having dark vision anymore.
Yeah, well, not only that, but just basing it off the human race. And we can go into races later, because certain races are extremely powerful just in and of themselves. The humans being able to choose their proficiencies and the skills that they will be best at, unlike most other races who come predetermined. Like, okay, this guy gets a plus to their strength, this race gets a plus to their wisdom. Humans are literally, you can be better at anything you want.
Yeah.
Having that ability as a human fighter and then having this, it's just, it's great.
Yeah, it really is. Now, the activation. Whenever a creature you can see ends its turn within 30 foot of you, you can use your reaction to invoke the rune and force the creature to make a wisdom saving throw.
Now remember, that's based off of your Constitution modifier.
Yeah, the DC is based off your con. Unless the save succeeds, the creature is charmed by you for 1 minute. While charmed in this way, the creature has a speed of 0 and is incapacitated, descending into a dreamy stupor. The creature repeats the saving throw at each of the end of its turns, ending the effect on a success.
So let's say, for instance, you run into that big group of bandits. There's 8 bandits and one big bad bandit leader. And he's, big guy, a lot of health, after 2 or 3 rounds, you realize this guy's doing a lot of damage. But luckily, he fails the saving throw. You take him out completely for that minute, as long as he continues to fail that saving throw, to where you can target the ones that are poking you in the back so you can focus on the larger problem later.
Yeah, and it's not just, the charmed is nice, but it's the speed of 0 and is incapacitated. That's what makes this powerful. If it was just, he's charmed, I probably wouldn't take this room. But because the speed is 0 and he's incapacitated, that's just
because Dungeons and Dragons all falls down to dice rolls. If you can luck up, because that's really what you're doing the entire time you're playing. If you can luck up and get that one that you truly feel is going to be the problem, to where you can focus on everything else first, to where you can say your party of 5 or 6 people can finally all be on this one person.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely useful. And it just plays into controlling the battle again, which obviously seems to be a
theme of the fighter.
The fighter, pretty much, because most of the subclasses are able to do so.
Yeah, it's a common theme with all these fighter subclasses.
It's crazy. It's almost like the fighter is designed for the fight.
Now, in the very first episode of Crit Theory, I said that we were going to be learning as much as probably y'all would be, and just going through the fighter subclasses, because I've never really read a whole lot into these until we were getting ready to do these episodes. There is so much potential, and I'm not going to lie, I want to play a fighter now.
Right?
And I've never wanted to play a fighter. I've always been more interested in the barbarians, blood hunters, and warlock sorcerer stuff. But the fighter is becoming more and more interesting to me because, yes, I knew that they were highly
Useful.
well, not only that, but you could build them however you wanted to.
Yeah.
But now knowing that you can do all these other things, it's so versatile, and that's what's making it so interesting to me. And we still have 2 more subclasses to cover.
I still want to make a samurai. I don't care.
I want to make that cavalier. We should just do an all-fighter party. Rob, start up another D game for us.
Let's do
I've got
one
one
shot.
planned after mine ends.
Let's do it one shot.
Let's just get a TPK in his game, and we'll just move on to
No,
all-fighter.
no. I
Now,
don't want to lose my artificer.
back on topic. This is when the last 2 runes, you have to be 7th level or higher, which, I gotta wait for them, but I'd say they're pretty worth it. Hill rune. The passive is you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and you have resistance against poison damage. And when you invoke it, you basically get a rage without the damage, because you get resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing for a minute. If anything, this will last longer than a rage because you don't have to attack and you don't have to take
Yeah,
damage.
don't have to be.
And you also get to borrow something from the dwarf race in becoming resistant to poison damage.
Which is, anytime you can get a resistance, it comes in handy.
Yeah, because you never know when you're going to face that creature or that enemy that could be, depending on the campaign that you're playing, is using that very rare damage type.
You may never need it, but when you need it, you'll be
It's
glad
there.
you had it.
I remember I played a sorcerer warlock in your game,
Yep.
and I got like the ring of warmth and a ring of fire resistance. He's also an Azamar, so he's got necrotic and radiant resistance.
Yeah.
And it's only come in handy one point when we were fighting a hag and an oni. And the moment he said, "You take this much cold damage," and I'd already succeeded the saving throw on the spell.
Yeah, you took a quarter of damage pretty much.
And I was like, so that's the damage half. I got to half it again, and which is real lucky because I'm not that tough because he's a sorcerer warlock, but that resistance that can go a long way.
Yeah.
Now Storm Rune, which
This is where it gets interesting.
that with Storm Rune, what they've pretty much done is they've taken the help action. Are you guys familiar with the help action?
Somewhat.
We use it in your game and sometimes in my game. You basically like give someone advantage on
Yeah.
something.
An assist.
Yeah. With the Rogue Mastermind, you can do that as a bonus action.
Yeah.
It can affect someone's attack. Well, with this rune right here, first off, passive is awesome because you have advantage on Arcana checks, and you can't be surprised as long as you aren't incapacitated. But when you invoke it, you basically get to use the help action as a reaction, but only for attack rolls or saving throws or an ability check. For 1 minute, until the state ends, or until the minute ends, whenever you or another creature you see within 60 feet of you, not 30, 60, makes an attack roll, saving throw, or an ability check, you can use your reaction to cause the roll to have advantage or disadvantage.
Yep.
Now this is impressive
Yeah.
because it's a minute of you get to spend your reaction on somebody else's turn saying, hey, you're doing better, or hey, you're doing worse.
And here's the thing. Now, granted, like we've said before, a lot of games unfortunately don't hit the high levels. A lot of games end around 10th, 12th, 15th level.
Yeah.
With 15th level, it's really good for a lot of classes.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to 15th level and you have all these runes available to you, the 5 that you can learn, there's so much that you can do, especially against that BBEG, that final fight, to where you can be like, oh, you're trying to attack my friend. How about you make that at disadvantage?
For a whole minute.
For a whole minute.
This is just a way to mess with the DM.
And then you tell it to hit somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you actually hit? Well, you actually, instead of hitting our...
You hit the rat that's over there in the corner.
Exactly.
Can you make it target a rat?
It said any creature.
Oh, my goodness.
You could make it target one of its own people.
You could literally ask the DM if there is a rat in the room within reach of the creature, and if there is, you can have that creature crush that rat.
That is ridiculous. I didn't even think about that.
have a dragon kill a rat, just a random rat running around the room.
I did one time have someone play as a rat in a D&D game.
I remember that.
No, it's no.
Oh, not the barbarian.
I'm not talking about a player character. I'm talking about they played a stat
An
block
actual
of a
rat.
because we were doing like a game and somebody like walked in and they're like, "What you playing?" I'm like, "Oh, Dungeons and Dragons." They're like, "What is that?" And instead of like, "Hey, let's roll you up a character," it's like, if you want to watch, here's a stat block of a rat. And it was a fun time. She got killed by the big bad evil guy, and then she left.
I mean, yeah, a rat.
Yeah. Anyway, she's married now, so if you want to get married, play a rat in D&D.
True story.
True story.
But going on in this fighter class, at 7th level, now...
Wait, we're missing one. 3rd level, Giant's Might.
Ah.
Now this is where it gets fun, guys. At 3rd level, as a bonus action, you can, for 1 minute, if you are smaller than large, you become large, along with anything you're wearing. If you lack the room, if you lack the room to become large, your size doesn't change. But you have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. And on one of each of your turns, or once on each of your turns, one of your attacks deals an extra 1d6 damage to the target on a hit.
And that goes into, this is like what we were talking about before. Now, granted, it was a rune that was giving you the resistance to the damage, and you won't get that until 7th level. But by the time you have the opportunity to be able to take that rune, it's almost as if you are playing a barbarian.
Yeah.
But with more ability.
Isn't there a belt that basically does the same thing as that?
Well, there's a belt of Hill Giant Strength.
I think it just increases your strength.
Yeah, it increases your strength modifier to 22.
It depends on which belt, because they got one for Hill, Stone. They got one for each type of giant.
The weakest is the Hill Giant because it's set at 22, and the strongest is Storm Giant, set at 26.
Okay.
But going on into like I was going to do before I realized I was skipping something. Runic Shield at 7th level. Now, by this point, you've got your 2 runes. You got 2 runes activated to where you can socket them. 7th level, you get your 3rd, and now
You have access to Storm and Hill.
Yes. So at 7th level, you can invoke your rune magic to protect your allies. So whenever you see a creature get hit within 60 feet of you, you can use your reaction to force the attacker to re-roll the d20 and use the new roll. You are literally using the luck skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus.
Now, you couple that into the reaction that you get from Storm Rune.
That's
It is pure control with the ability to do damage.
Yeah.
That is just when you have one guy in mind that you're wanting to target. You really don't like the guy. And you're like, you are doing nothing useful or successful.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is the wording on this. Because there's a lot of, someone re-rolls the dice ability. It'll say you can use either roll,
Yeah.
or you have to use the new roll. This one doesn't say any of that. It says you can use your reaction to force the attacker to re-roll the d20 and use the new roll. Now, as a DM, I would rule that as you could make them use a new roll, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
What's your personal ruling on that?
I think 5e has given the DM a lot of playroom.
Yeah.
And you could either run, of course, it goes into what kind of DM you want to be.
Yeah.
You could either have it to where they have to use the new roll, or you could have that runic shield fighter make the decision for them. And I think that would give, really, when it comes to the role-playing aspect of it, I think it would give the player of the runic fighter a sense of worth that not a lot of other people would get, because you're getting to make a decision for somebody else.
Yeah. Continue on. Great stature.
Have you ever been standing in your kitchen? You're less than 5.5 foot tall, trying to reach the top shelf. Well, the 10th level is just for you.
This ability is for all my short kings out there. Represent. When you gain this feature, you roll 3d4. You grow a number of inches in height equal to the roll. You grow taller.
By a possible foot.
Can we take a moment just to realize how ridiculous that is? Like, name another. There's other abilities out there with different subclasses to where like your appearance will change. I think there's something with like the shadow magic sorcerer, like you just look like you're dead but you're not.
Yeah, and there's also the enlarged spell, and I think it was introduced in Critical Role, the Titanstone Knuckles, and I don't know if it's in any of the books or if it was just something that Matt Mercer's brilliant mind came up with himself, to where you literally grow after smashing them together and activating them. But having that as a class feature to where you just literally get taller is nice, because becoming taller isn't always useful in D&D, but what comes along with it is, because now your Giant's Might feature increases to 1d8 over a d6.
Yeah, the damage is good and all. I'm just talking about how ridiculous it is that you could grow a foot. I'm still stuck on that. Could you imagine playing like a dwarf? Maybe you're playing like a taller dwarf. You know, maybe like 4.5 feet. Now you're 5'5". Or no, 5'6". Sorry, I forgot that Imperial system's different.
Yeah.
You're no longer a dwarf. You're just a short man.
A short, stocky man.
Yeah.
Actually,
no, you're not even stocky anymore. You don't grow wider. You grow taller.
Or more importantly, let's compare this to real life, okay? And we'll use milestones of life as in our hitting 10th level in air quotes. You go and buy that new car, in which you've never been able to do, but you finally have the ability to do so. And the second you sign the paperwork, you grow 8 inches.
And
You grow 8 inches taller, and now you're wearing high waters. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
Pretty much.
I'm still stuck on just growing taller. It's so ridiculous.
Moving on to 15th level is when you become a master of the runes, to where you can invoke each rune that you know from your rune carver feature twice. Now at 15th level, you have access to 5 of the 6 runes, and you can activate each of them twice per short or long rest.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, ridiculous.
Highly useful.
Another thing that we kind of didn't hit on was each time you level up, you can change out your runes.
Yeah.
Which is honestly awesome.
You get the ability to try all of them out and figure out what you're going to like and what you're not going to really use that much.
Sorcerer and Warlock get the same ability, like with their spells. They can change about with a level up.
Well, clerics do as well, because they can literally go to sleep and be like, "Hey, Lord, give me a new spell," and they do.
Yeah, but you can do that on a long rest.
Yeah.
You know, sorcerers and warlocks, they have to earn it.
Mm-hmm.
And now this ability with the fighter, you don't see that in the other subclasses. They don't get to, or I don't think they get to change their, like, you know.
I don't believe so.
Like Battle Master, he doesn't change his maneuvers.
I don't think so.
Arcane Archer doesn't change his shots, his arcane shots, or hers.
Oh yeah, we're multicultural here.
Yes, the different culture between men and women.
Yeah, well, there is.
All right, but it's an awesome thing to be able to change and further customize, because maybe there's one that you just don't use and you'll probably never use, you think, in your mind, until you have to use it and you've already changed it out. But I like the ability to change it out. I like the customization. I like to, you know, switch things up.
That, and you, once again, obviously I'm really big into the role play aspect of it. But going into talking in between characters, your fighter talking to everybody else within his adventuring party, when you realize that you're coming up to this big boss fight, maybe not the end game, but this adult or young dragon that's been terrorizing the town to the north or whatever, and you're going to deal with that because you've been asked to by somebody you respect, and they're going to give you a lot of gold too. And you can sell parts of the dragon for a ton of gold. You can, on the way there, or the night before going into this fight, especially if you're using Milestone and you've just hit a level up, or you expect a level up beforehand. You can have like this conversation in game between, I have the ability to do these runes, and this is what each of them do. What do you guys think would be most useful in this fight? Like, do you think the Storm rune would be more useful than the Fire rune in that aspect? And you can just kind of hash it out in between the characters, more so than the players, because it just adds a whole new depth to connection, being able to get other people involved.
Speaking on like the roleplay aspect, you could also kind of, you could really go heavy into the lore with it. Maybe like the runes kind of represent seasons, and like as you're leveling up, as you're becoming more powerful, you kind of go through these different seasons, and that affects like how your character role plays a little bit. Maybe like when you have the fire rune equipped, maybe your character's a little bit more hot-headed. Or when you have the what I'm drawing a blank on the other runes. Maybe on the frost rune, you're a little bit more of that bro, like hey, let's wrestle, push it out kind of type. I think you could really go into the roleplay aspect, and you can do it with any class. There's subclass.
Now, 18th level, by the time you're getting up into this level of subclasses and even classes themselves, the added bonuses are kind of starting to fall off. The stuff you're getting around 18th level isn't as good as what you're going to get at 20th level. It may not be as good as what you get at 15th level. But this specifically, this is extremely interesting, because when you hit 18th level, you learn how to amplify your rune-powered transformation, and as a result, the extra damage that you deal now increases from that D8 to a D10, and like always, extra damage is nice, but when you use the feature to increase your size, you can increase to huge, which gives you a 10-foot reach without having a reach weapon.
And then if you equip that with the reach weapon,
20 feet of reach.
That'd be 15.
25.
What?
30.
What?
I'm bad at math. Leave me alone.
You get a 15-foot reach.
Yeah.
Now, for all my power gamers out there, you get the Sentinel feat.
Yeah.
I don't need to say anything else on that.
That's very true.
Man, what was it? There was 2 feats that I used. Were you there for that game? There one shot that I ran when we were in Will's game, and like there's these 3 guys side by side, and they had like glaives or something, and like you guys would come to them and they would stop you dead in your tracks when you got within 15 feet of you.
I think so.
Yeah, I was using this. I gave them the Sentinel feat. They were bugbears, and I gave them the Sentinel feat. And Polearm Master. Yeah, so with Polearm Master, when you make an attack action, an attack with only a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear, you can use bonus action. Oh no, not that side. Other creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you when they enter your reach.
Yeah.
Now, you get that Polearm Master with the Sentinel to where you reduce speed with opportunity attack. And not only that, the thing is, when you are just medium or small, you're 1 square. When you're large, you're 4 squares.
Mm-hmm.
When you're huge, you're 9 squares.
Yeah.
So the range has increased from small to medium from 15 on one side, 15 on the other.
If you have your normal size companion standing there, you could hit somebody
over them
and upwards of 25 to 30 feet away from them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because of the amount of space that you
take
up.
9 lengthwise, width and length of area of control that you could have with these feats.
Yep.
Now, that's the Rune Knight. And honestly, the Rune Knight is
pretty dang good.
What's your thoughts on the Rune Knight? You've been a little bit quiet with it.
See, I've had a thought over here. With the Giant's Might, if you're smaller than large, you go up to large.
Yeah.
Say you're a gnome. Rune Knight. You go to large. You're a large gnome. Then when you hit 18th level, you go to huge.
It is entirely possible.
A giant gnome.
With a glaive.
With Sentinel and Polearm Master,
Oh, dear
Oh,
Lord.
Lord.
you could defend all the gardens.
That'd be hilarious.
I am Nomeo.
You are Papa Smurf.
That is ridiculous.
I
But-
kind of want to do that now.
But now we're faced with the issue of we still have 2 more subclasses to cover, but which one do we want to do first? Well, at this point, second.
That's true. You guys want to head up?
I think Purple Dragon Knight would be a good one.
Yeah,
Or
the
Banneret.
Jinx. You owe me a Coke.
There's
Well,
one
there's-
in the fridge.
Yeah, there's 3 in the fridge.
Okay, I'll get that later. Now, there's an interesting topic with Purple Dragon Knight. At 3rd level, there's a restriction. And it's only like in campaign settings, though. So,
Yeah. And of course, DM could always say, you know, you can hail from the kingdom of my world,
Yeah.
to where you can still play the subclass.
Yeah. There's restrictions aren't a huge thing in Dungeons and Dragons and 5e comparative to older editions. But
Yes.
basically, if you're playing in the Swords Coast, it's like, kind of restricted to a specific order of the, and I may be saying this wrong, Cormarian Knighthood, or Banneret serves as a generic name for this archetype if you're using other campaign settings. Now, Rallying Cry at 3rd level. When you use your second wind feature, which is, you regain health, you can choose up to 3 creatures within 60 feet of you that are allied with you. They regain hit points equal to your fire level, provided that they can see or hear you.
Now, maybe you're only 3rd level, and it'd only be 3 health back. But at the end of the day, it's 3 health back.
At the end of the day, you're still not unconscious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that could bring somebody back from unconsciousness.
Exactly.
Well, they
have to be able to hear you.
or
Oh, yeah.
see you.
But here's the thing, though, is that healing in Dungeons and Dragons with all the abilities that you've got, maybe somebody's out of spell slots, and you have that 1 second wind left. You can do maybe just a little bit of healing, but it's still healing.
Healing is powerful. Healing is so powerful in Dungeons and Dragons that there are literally abilities that are very useful that only give you 1 point of healing. And that's like when you drop to 0.
Now,
It's Relentless Endurance with a half orc, and I think Shadow Magic Sorcerer also has it.
yeah, and the other subclass for fighter, the Samurai, had something with he will not go down until his enemy goes down.
Yeah.
Or he at least gets 1 more turn to try to do so.
Yeah.
This one is the Purple Dragon Knight is interesting because
I think it's leaned more heavily towards the role play aspect than anything.
it really is. This is the knight.
If you want to get into, if you know your game is going to be heavy in role play, and you're looking for a subclass to do for the fighter, if you really want to get into the role play, I think the Banneret would be the one to do.
Let's get into the 7th level, which is Royal Envoy. At 7th level, you gain proficiency in the Persuasion skill. If you're already proficient with it, you can gain proficiency in Animal Handling, Insight, Intimidation, or Performance.
But more importantly, the proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check that makes use of Persuasion. And you gain this benefit regardless of the skill proficiency you gain from this feature. So if you were already proficient with Persuasion, you still get that double proficiency in Persuasion.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, because you can literally talk your way out of a fight that you can't handle right now.
Again, I'm pretty sure this stacks with Expertise.
Yes.
It probably, yeah.
Honestly, when you look at the Purple Dragon Knight, it's like they kind of modeled him after the Paladin.
Yeah, he's the feel good
Well, see,
subclass of the fighter.
I'm getting more of a cavalier without the horse training.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah, I think like I was just saying, I think he's the feel good subclass of the fighter class.
Yeah.
He's the one to where, yeah, you may not get all this added bonus in the combat, and a lot of people out there only care about how well they do in combat. But there's those few that, while everybody else is really good at combat and maybe not so good in town, those few people are like, you know what, I got to be able to make sure that we can talk to people.
Yeah.
This is what was going to be making this just overly useful.
Yeah, the role playing abilities with this are
The ability to get information from people who may not be wanting to share it.
reducing prices at stores,
Talking, like I said, talking your way out of a fight.
convincing the barmaid to,
Give you favors.
yeah, more mead. That's what we're talking about. More
Yes.
ale.
Get your mind out of the gutter.
At 10th level, this one is also another kind of buff for your allies within 60 feet of you. When you use your action surge, an ally within 60 feet of you can make one melee or range attack with its reaction, provided that it can see or hear you.
But what makes that so interesting is the 18th level. Now, once again, a lot of games don't get that late. But if it's a one-shot, at 18th level, you can choose 2 allies rather than 1.
Yeah.
That is, now I just want to make like the big bad evil guy
A banneret.
a Banneret, and he has just got minions.
The Evil Knight.
Now, 15th level, Bulwark. You can extend the benefit of your Indomitable feature to an ally. So, Indomitable, for those that aren't familiar, because I'm not the most familiar with it, you can re-roll a saving throw that you fail. If you do so, you must use the new roll. You can't use it until you finish a long rest. You can use it twice at 13th level and 3 times at 17th level before needing a long rest. So at 15th level, you can use this twice already. And when you use your Indomitable to reroll an Intelligence, a Wisdom, or a Charisma saving throw, and you aren't hold on. You extend the benefit of your Indomitable feature to an ally. When you decide to use Indomitable to reroll an Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma saving throw, and you aren't incapacitated, you can choose one ally within 60 feet of you that also failed its saving throw with the same effect.
Now, it may not be helpful against the chain lightning or fireball, but any kind of, if you're facing some...
Charm or something.
Yeah, a charm effect, something to do with... if the DM's put you up against some kind of darkened cleric that's using spirit guardians.
Or a fear.
Or a fear effect, yes.
Or any kind of psychic damage, really.
Yeah.
Or some psychic damage. Because intelligence and psychic damage are usually linked.
You can give that to your party. Or one person. That's pretty good.
Now, unfortunately, that's pretty much all this subclass gets.
That is.
That's everything that subclass gets. This is, as far as the added bonuses that you get for a subclass, the number of things that you get, this is the weakest. And as far as combat goes, it's possibly also the weakest. But it's not always about the damage that you can do. It's about how helpful you can be to your party members during that combat. The cleric, for instance, is not always going to be out there doing 30 damage per turn like the rogue or the ranger or the fighter. It's going to be sitting there doing 30 points of healing. And this class being able to give the ability to re-roll a save, to make an extra attack with the reactions of 1 and then up to 2 party members, it kind of gives that, you know what, I may not be the on-paper leader of this group, but I'm the moral leader at least. I'm going to get y'all through this.
It may not be the most powerful in combat or does most damage as the other subclasses. At the end of the day, it's still a fighter.
Yeah, you're still a fighter. You're still making 4 attacks per action.
At 20th level.
Yeah.
You still get access to Action Surge, Second Wind. You still have those. You still have proficiency with all weapons, all armors, all shields.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, this may be the weaker of the subclasses when it comes to certain aspects, but you're still a fighter.
You are still a fighter. You still get fighting style. You still have a decent hit dice. You still get, ability score improvements, which is you get a lot of ability score improvements as a fighter.
Yeah. This would make a really good one-shot character.
Yeah, it really would.
And it would also play really well into a game if you talk to your DM. Always talk to your DM before the start of the game to try and get a feel as to what the game is going to be like. If it's going to be heavily combat based or if it's going to be heavily role play and story driven.
Now, I just like to not talk to the DM at all before the game. I just like to show up with a joke character and have fun.
I've noticed, but always have that conversation with them because if it's going to be heavily story driven, then this opens up that opportunity to be able to play something that may not be played as often.
Yeah, definitely.
And give you a whole new experience.
So, Purple Dragon Knight or the Banneret, whichever you call it, honestly, maybe not the most admirable or favorable for a lot of people.
One of the most interesting.
One of the most interesting, still a solid choice.
Yep. But this last one.
Now, this last one.
That we have available to us, because I'm sure that there's more that's come out with Unearthed Arcana, but we're not going to cover those yet.
Don't even get me started on it. Anyways, we first looked at this because we did some research, and you were not impressed with the Psi Warrior.
No, at first glance, I was not impressed with the Psi Warrior, and then I took the time and spent about 30 minutes reading through it.
In fact, you were like, the Purple Dragon is better.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
No, it's not. It is not. I will say now, after spending time going over the Psi Knight...
Psi Warrior.
Well, the Psi Warrior, the Psi Knight. I think it's called the Psi Knight somewhere.
No, it's Psi Warrior.
It's a knight, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
It's a Jedi. It's not a knight.
He is majestic and he has strong morals. He could be a knight if he wanted to. Mine would be. Either way.
If not in my game, I'd make sure you never get knighted just to rub it in. You're a warrior.
Oh.
You got your psychic powers, but no knighthood.
I am Mr. Knight of Hagenball.
Yeah, Charred Knight of Hagenball.
The Charred Knight of... First of all, the identities of my character and that legend are not associated. Then it's never... I'm the Bruce Wayne, he's the Batman.
Okay.
Okay?
However, but after spending the 30 minutes reading over the Psi Warrior, my eyes opened to a whole new realm of possibilities that the fighter would not have been able to do before.
I'm going to be honest with you. This is a Jedi.
Yeah.
This is a Force user.
Yeah.
And Eric, I'm glad you're here because I remember when I played Balicelli, the monk.
Oh.
You sent me a homebrew subclass.
They made a Jedi subclass
for the monk.
Yeah.
Using key points to cast like certain spells and all that, which was pretty cool. But this right here, this is a Jedi.
This is a Jedi.
You get this for free.
This is crazy. Now, the first thing you get at 3rd level is psionic power.
Mm-hmm.
And the psionic power is interesting in and of itself, and we'll get into that in a second.
This could open up realms with like the...
This is opening a can of worms.
Yeah, psychic worms. So,
they float.
Yeah, they float.
They float.
They float. Steal your psychic energy. So, as it's worded, you harbor a wellspring of psionic energy within you. The energy is represented by your psionic energy dice, which are each a d6. You have a number of these equal to twice your proficiency bonus, and they fuel various psionic powers you have, which are detailed below. Some of these powers require the dice to be spent, some of them do not. So the first 3 things that pop up is Protective Field, Psionic Strike, and Telekinetic Movement. Protective Field, whenever you or another creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your action to expend 1 psychic energy dice, roll the dice, and reduce the damage taken by the number rolled, plus your intelligence modifier. Minimum of 1. So, again, we've seen fighters for reduce damage or protect allies. This is just another rendition of that. It's a pretty straightforward ability. Now, again, we've seen the fighter protect damage or stop damage.
Mm-hmm.
Psionic Strike is the next one available, and this one is another tried and true thing that we've seen through many of the subclasses. You're dealing more damage. Whenever you hit a target within 30 feet of you with an attack and deal damage to it, you can expend a dice, rolling that dice, a d6, dealing force damage, which is a rare damage type that not a lot of creatures are resistant to it,
Yeah.
let alone immune to it.
Probably only the ethereal things.
Yeah. And you get to add your intelligence modifier to it. So not only are you rolling an additional 1d6 to whatever weapon this is, you're adding in your intelligence modifier, which is, if you're using a psionic character, it's going to be high, probably.
Yeah,
Now that's just awesome, because you don't really see a whole lot of things like that with subclass abilities, where you get to add a modifier in as well. Next thing up after that is telekinetic movement. Now you can move an object or a creature with your mind. As an action, you target one loose object that is large or smaller, or one willing creature, other than yourself. If you can see the target and it's within 30 feet of you, you can move it up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space. Alternately, if it's a tiny object, you can move it to or from your hand. Either way, you can move the target horizontally, vertically, or both. Once you take this action, you can't do so until you finish a short or long rest, unless you expend a psionic injury dice to take it. Which, you don't have to expend a dice to use this.
I just thought about something.
Go ahead. What is it?
I don't know why, but this made me think of, like, in Lord of the Rings, when Gimli's tossed me.
Yep.
You could toss a dwarf into battle.
You could.
Good.
You could. This is it's useful, because this is allowing you to control movement
Yeah.
of not only objects but allies. Which, if you are, imagine this scenario, okay? You're on a tactical retreat because the big bad evil guy is too strong and he's about to wipe out the party. You've got the rogue, the monk, the barbarian, they are all running ahead of you. It's just like you and the wizard. And the wizard does not have any mobility spells on. And you sacrifice yourself by using your action instead of dashing. You throw him 30 feet forward with this. And that wizard dashes with his action and runs. He's gone. Now, you have sacrificed yourself. It would make a great roleplay moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would it not?
Yeah.
Not only that, but this maneuvers...
In that case, you'd have the high ground.
I have the high ground.
and so of a big PvEG. I have the high ground. You underestimate my plot armor. But again, moving allies around the battlefield is useful.
Yeah.
Mobility. You
Now-
can move allies to, if they don't have a clear shot on the enemy, if they're a ranger or, a ranged rogue, and they don't have a clear shot, and that enemy is really close to dying, 30 feet over, take your shot.
Yeah.
Now, guarded mind, in and of itself, gets the one thing that even the Totem of the Bear Barbarian doesn't get.
You're skipping over telekinetic adept.
That's what you're talking about.
No, I was talking about...
telekinetic move it. I was looking at telekinetic thrust.
this man is just... Psi-powered leaping
I'm
ahead.
I'm reading more and I'm losing track.
It's all right. We'll forgive you for now. At 7th level, you get even more options. Now, keep in mind, these are things that you just get. You don't have to pick and choose,
Yeah.
which is impressive because all the other subclasses, you've had to pick certain things. This one says, hey, here's it all. You can use it.
Here, take this.
You get Psi-powered leap, which is another mobility thing, another mobility ability. As a bonus action, you can propel your body with your mind. You gain a flying speed equal to twice your walking speed until the end of the current turn. Once you take this bonus action, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. A flying fighter? Come on now.
You could do the psi-powered leap and then use the telekinetic movement to pull somebody in with you.
Yeah. Which is, anytime you can fly in
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, it's always going to be useful.
Because that's going to be you flying over movement impairing terrain.
Yeah. Or, flying out
a
of
wall
range.
or anything.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Now, to make up for my blunder, I would like to go over telekinetic thrust when you're ready.
Well, hold on, because flying is impressive because not only the uses of it, you're falling, boom, you gain a flying speed. Here's the thing, it's not just, your walking speed, 30 feet. It's 60 foot of flying.
Yeah.
Which 60 feet of flying is ridiculous.
And depending on the race that you choose, you could have 80 foot of flying because there are some races that get 40 foot of movement.
Yeah. Which is crazy. All right, go ahead with telekinetic thrust.
So on telekinetic thrust, when you deal damage to a target with your psionic strike, you can force the target to make a strength saving throw against what would be 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your proficiency plus your intelligence modifier. If it fails to save, you knock it prone and move it up to 10 feet in any direction horizontally. Any direction. You can push them forward, backwards, move them closer, move them away, move them to another enemy, push them off a cliff.
In any direction is some powerful wording.
Yeah.
Because other pushing abilities is 10 feet away from you. This is, I want him 10 feet behind me because I'm going to run away. Or to the side, so he enters in the reach of my Rune Knight, who's a Sentinel Polearm Master. So he gets that opportunity attack.
Or you're fighting on the top of a building somewhere and it's
push him off the side.
Yeah, you hit him and it's by the way, now you're falling 120 feet.
Yeah.
Turns out they were also a Psi Warrior, and they used their Psi-powered leap, and they gained a flying speed equal to 60, and they're back up.
That's unfortunate.
Because this is Obi-Wan versus Anakin Skywalker. Just recreating Dungeons & Dragons.
If he'd done that, he'd be cut in half and burning in lava.
Don't try it. You underestimate my power.
But what I was going to talk about at 10th level, Guarded Mind. You get the one thing that the Barbarian class, even with Totem of the Bear, does not get. And I don't think there's any other class, if there is one, it's only maybe one or two, that gets resistant to psychic damage. To where at 10th level, you gain resistance to psychic damage. Moreover, if you start your turn charmed or frightened, you can expend a psionic die and every effect on yourself subjecting you and end those effects that you're under.
Yeah.
If you're charmed, frightened, whatever, get rid of a die, you're no longer under the effect.
Snap out of it.
Well, it only affects charmed and frightened. It doesn't affect stunned, poisoned.
But still, charmed and frightened.
Yeah.
Two major things.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you're playing a fighter, you're most likely going to be a close range guy. You're frightened by someone, you can't approach it. So they could just back away.
And once you've been charmed or feared, you cannot be charmed or feared again for a lot of amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can end that on your own without having to make the save. Now you could play it like Monopoly, try to roll a couple of times and then just buy your way out of jail.
No, my dice rolls ain't that good.
That's my point.
Just gonna buy my way out of it.
Now it gets even more oogly boogly. At 15th level, when you get Bulwark of Force, you can shield yourself and others with telekinetic force. As a bonus action, you can choose creatures, which can include you, that you can see within 30 feet of you, up to a number of creatures equal to your intelligence modifier. So this is one of the only subclasses for the fighter that you want to have intelligence for, outside of maybe Eldritch Knight. They are protected by half cover for a minute or until you're incapacitated. You can only do so once per long rest unless you expended a psionic die. Everybody getting half cover.
Half cover is impressive.
Yeah.
Plus 2 bonus to AC and dexterity saving throws. That is useful.
It's crazy, is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really
30 feet.
I don't really have anything to say of it. That's kind of just speaks for itself. Half cover. You could beat it 3/4 cover or full cover, but for an ability where you give people half cover without having to move around and actually look for half cover
As a bonus action.
as a bonus action, you still have your action.
But here's the kicker. You have a number of dice equal to twice your proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you hit 15th level, let's say, what's proficiency bonus at 15th level? 4 or 3?
I think it's 4.
You have 8 die. You can do this 8 times.
That's 8 minutes.
15th level proficiency is +5.
Plus 5?
Plus 5. You can do this 10 times. If it's one of those ridiculously long fights, you can have 10 minutes of half cover.
Yeah.
That's a
You could literally cover everybody in the party.
that's 100 turns of half cover.
That's a +2 bonus to AC for everybody. It
Let's
is
see.
the mass cure wounds? Well,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
a mass shield of faith.
See, that's as a bonus action. You can telepathically move people into this
Yeah,
as an action.
we didn't even think about that.
You're basically a tank. A literal tank is what you've done for 30 feet.
But here's the thing, it only gets better at 18th level. When you have all these abilities to be able to use these, you can cast a telekinesis spell requiring no components, and your spellcasting ability for the spell is intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
On each of your turns, while you concentrate on the spell, including the turn when you cast it, you can make one attack with a weapon as a bonus action.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still a fighter even when you're doing wizardy bullcrap.
You could be Gandalf.
But it's another one of those things to where you can only use it once per long rest unless you spend one of your 10
Yeah.
psychic die, which goes up to 12 at 20th level if you reach that point, because I do
No.
believe this
17th level, it's +6.
12 times you can use your telekinesis. Free real estate.
I don't understand the free real estate related, but I agree with it.
Oh, you're moving around.
Oh yeah, free real
Yeah.
It's free real estate. Manifest destiny.
So you want to tell me how bad the Psi Warrior is compared to the Purple Dragon Knight?
I'm going to eat my foot.
So,
I put it in my mouth, and I may as well just go ahead and eat it.
so Jeremiah, can I remake a character for your campaign?
Yeah, we're all going to be fighters.
Listen, if y'all guys want to run an all-fire campaign, I'll TPK him. I mean,
Let's
I'll
go for it. I'll go for a Jedi. Come on. I'll go for a Jedi vampire.
Jedi Vampire. All right, I think that covers all the subclasses that have been released.
That covers the fighter class.
Not
Yeah,
all subclasses of the fighter
Yeah.
class
in the books.
in the books.
Yeah, that we know of so far.
Yeah.
And if anything gets released in the future, we'll be sure to cover them and try to give you a little bit of information, because obviously we're still learning ourselves. When I say we, I mean I.
I'm still learning too. Not
Yeah,
very
me
good
too.
at it.
But I'm hoping that over the past 3 episodes, you're able to take some information that we give you. If you were looking at this to think about, you know what, I want to play a fighter, but I don't really know what subclass to choose. You know, what could be useful, what could be the most beneficial to my party. Hopefully this helped.
Let's do this. You know, we covered the different subclasses. What's your top 3 picks?
All. The top 3, because when it comes to combat, I don't care about doing the most damage. I want to control the flow of it. I want to be the guy that's saying, hey, I want to half their movement. I want to incapacitate them. I want to hold them. I want to stun them. So the 3, to me, my top 3 subclasses for the fighter are definitely, number 1, the Psi Warrior.
Okay.
I have flipped the script completely on this guy. He is so good. Now, unfortunately, you do have to take one of those ability scores and try to roll high for your intelligence if you're doing a roll base.
Yeah.
I think a role-based campaign, you know, rolling the 46 and dropping the lowest, that could hurt it, but it's still possible to do so. I think my number 2 would probably have to go to the Battle Master, because it is just so much control.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to maneuver everybody as exactly where you want them, trip, disarm the enemy, it's just endless possibilities to what you can do in that moment of the fight. But I'm flipping the script again back to the roleplay aspect, because the samurai is going to have a special place in my heart for the rest of my D&D life, because of the role play that you can do specifically for the big bad guy, to where you are at 0 health, you stay at 1, you get one more turn, and that could be the turn that ends it for everybody, and you die knowing that you saved the world.
It's always a good one. Eric, what about you?
First choice would probably be Samurai.
Samurai's a good one.
I'm really thinking about my barbarian dying and going for Samurai.
Multi-class into a fighter samurai.
Oh, God. And then I'd probably have to go with the Psi Warrior. Because it's a Jedi, and it really, especially at the higher, well, it's good at low levels, but the higher the levels, it just gets way up there.
Now, going on the Psi Warrior real quick, I think it was in Unearthed Arcana, but I don't think they transferred it over to Tasha's. I read somewhere, and like I said, I don't think it's in the actual class, but it could be. I may have overlooked it. Somewhere I saw that if you roll minimum on your Psi die, that it decreases in size. It will go from a D6 to a D4. However, if you max it, it increases a die size.
That's with the feats that are telekinetic and telepathic.
That's something that we didn't really discuss, but that is extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's a feat. So we'll cover that.
Yeah, it was at one point originally in the class itself, but now with it being a feat, just remember that feat if you can find it. If you're playing a Psi Warrior, take it.
Yeah. My last choice would have to go with a classic Eldritch Knight.
Oh, yes.
That's fair.
I mean,
because when you think about it, people that play a wizard are wanting to play a wizard because they're a wizard.
Yeah.
You've watched Sword in the Stone. You know about Merlin. Maybe even Harry Potter if you're one of those people. And Gandalf. And you're just wanting to be able to have that lightning shooting out of your hands, or the ability to throw snow and ice all over the place, and you get to do that as a wizard, and now you get to do it as a knight.
I've got it like in my head, like the old classic, like Black Knight with the dragon helm, sitting on a mountaintop just casting magic with his big sword.
More specifically, fireball.
Yes, and I just want to play that.
That's a good one. For me, top pick, we'll probably have to go to the Cavalier.
Yeah.
The Cavalier, the Knights will always have a special place in my heart. And the Cavalier, Benneret's good. The Cavalier.
It's just more useful in more places.
Yeah, it's...
The Banneret's more towards a role play aspect. It has got some stuff for combat, but the Cavalier is so combat-based. While having the ability to do some role playing, it unfortunately blows Banneret out of the water. And I'm hoping that maybe they'll go back into the Banneret and add a few things.
Yeah, because Banneret came out before Cavalier. But anyways, I love the Cavalier. When I first read it, I was like, I'll never like Cavalier because I don't use mounts really in the game. But now, kind of like reading through it when we did it,
it's not all about the mounts.
It's not all about the mounts.
And that's what I thought going into Cavalier was basically horseback. But
if it comes down to it, you could always buy a horse.
Yeah.
Be even more useful. Another good one, or another one that's in my top list, I got to go with the Samurai.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love playing a character that just refuses to die.
Yeah.
I've only played one barbarian in my entire experience with D&D, but I've played characters before that are just not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And the Samurai just really speaks true to me on that. And then I got to go... See, the Eldritch Knight, the Psi Warrior, and the Rune Knight, they all hold a special place in my heart because they scream that spell sword-esque kind of character that I want.
Yeah.
But because of my love for Star Wars and how the Psi Warrior is basically a Jedi, I have to go with that one.
Yeah. Now, that our top three does not mean that we don't think that the other subclasses are no good. Obviously, the Champion is ridiculous. The Arcane Archer, if you like a Ranger, but you want to play something that's got a little bit more control over the battlefield, the Arcane Archer is amazing.
I would play an Arcane Archer over a Ranger any day.
Yeah, because especially when it comes to this podcast, there's a reason we call it Crit Theory. It's our opinions based on what we think and what's been written in the rules and what information we've been able to get. And at the end of the day, you get to make the final decision.
Yeah, this is your character, in the game that you are going to participate in. It's not our game. It's not our character.
Yep, you could agree or disagree entirely, and at the end of the day, the both of us will have one heck of a character to play.
Oh yeah, we just want to give you the option, like the information beforehand, and kind of sell each of these subclasses to you. See which one sticks out to you, so you can figure out what you want to play.
We're role-playing salesmen.
Yeah. Go ahead and roll for persuasion.
I'm always rolls.
I'm a Rune Knight, and I have the Rune active, so I get a +2. That's an 8.
Yeah, I don't think we're persuading anybody today.
No.
We're terrible. We got to quit the podcast now.
Probably. Either way, what we're going to talk about next episode, Jeremiah?
See, here's the thing. The fighter is extremely customizable because one thing that we really didn't hit on is we hit on a little bit. You want to know how many ability score improvements the fighter gets throughout the 20 years?
5, isn't it?
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 ability score improvements.
Wow.
That is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to customize a fighter is insane. Because that gives you access to feats.
Yeah.
You can make the Psi Warrior more psychically powered. You can make the Rune Knight have the Sentinel and Polearm Master like we talked about. You can make the Cavalier have the charging feat along with his ability to Ferocious Charger.
Yep. The other classes also have the ability score improvements and the option to take feats as well.
But not as much as the fighter.
No, not as much as the fighter, but getting into the customization probably would be a great idea.
Yeah, it's insane because Wizards of the Coast is making 5e very customizable.
Yeah.
You can play anything you want to.
Yeah, 5e is by far the most player-friendly of the editions.
Look at all the subclasses we've covered for the fighter and tell me that they are not other classes added into it.
Yeah.
Arcane Archer, Ranger, Eldritch Knight, Wizard.
Psi Warrior.
Yeah. Rune Knight. I reckon it's a little close to the Sorcerer in ways.
Yeah.
Psi Warrior, Psionics. They had the Mystic Unearthed Arcana, which, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was too good. Barbarian with, again, Giants, the Rune Knight. You've got all these, and then you got Paladin with Cavalier and Purple Dragon Knight.
Mm-hmm.
You can customize
endlessly almost.
It seems like every class, the subclasses, you look, they have subclasses that are just other classes added on to it. And you can have the arguments like, well, why are there even classes and subclasses? Why not just use a skill tree like some other RPG games?
Mm-hmm.
And let's get into that next episode because, there's a lot of discussion we can have with it.
Because really, if you're one of those people that enjoys video games and you enjoy the RPG, you have never played anything like Dungeons and Dragons if you're just now getting into it because you can take the customization you get in, say, Skyrim, multiply it by 100, and that's Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, the way they do the video games is just for streamline and ease of use, I guess.
Yeah. Well, they've also done that with 5e. It's so easy to figure stuff out.
It is.
You got to do a lot of reading, but once you get that figured out, it's an ease of use and it's extremely user friendly.
Yeah.
On a note to end, here's something that I'd like to ask a question that we can theorize about, and for our listeners at home. So with the Rune Knight, they get the ability to read, write, and speak Giant.
Mm-hmm.
Does Giant come in fine print?